Welcome back to the Falling Apart video series. This is part 2 where we're going to talk about my own best enemy. First of all, thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in last week. I hope you got the opportunity to check out the studio version of When You Say Goodbye, which is up on the artist page as well as on reverbnation.com/Andy Matthews. So my own best enemy is a song that originally wasn't going to be on the album. The main reason for that is that it ends with a fade out, which is to say that I never wrote a proper ending for the song. So when looking at material for this album, I never considered that one. It wasn't underlined in my lyrics folder. So it didn't get a look. What ended up happening was I was having some problems with one of the tracks that I was going to include and decided to discard it. And so I played for Barry and Tim 3 songs that I thought would make a decent replacement, and they both selected my own best enemy, which was not what I would have chosen, but I really respected those guys' opinion and ended up going with it. And it was very serendipitous because this is sort of the crux of the whole dilemma is in this song right here. And while typically I hate fade outs in music, to me it's like if you were reading a book and the last chapter, the text just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you didn't get to hear, you didn't get to read the end of the story. You just kind of got a general idea of what happened. It's appropriate for this album, and it's appropriate for this story in that, chronologically speaking, the last song on this album was written in 2010. And I didn't get sober until 2015. So, my alcoholism and my drug addiction just sort of went on like that for a while. And the song talks about sort of what is at the center of that whole compulsion for me. Substance use disorder and OCD have a lot in common. At least the way it manifested in my experience. OCD, you think of a typical example of someone who compulsively washes their hands. That's an example that's pretty well depicted in television and film. And, what happens is the person has an obsessive thought about germs or cleanliness, and in order to find some relief from that obsessive thought, they perform a compulsion, which is to wash their hands, which is where obsessive compulsive disorder gets its name. For me, I had these obsessive negative thoughts about, you're not good enough, you can't do this is too hard. The sort of loop that was going on in my head was, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm lonely, and I'm scared. And it was just on repeat. And it took a lot of different forms, and there were a lot of different ways to word that in my head, but that was sort of the meat and potatoes of it. And, the compulsion was to put a substance in my body. I'm tired, sad, lonely, scared, and I reach for a drink. Now, we left off the story in 2006 with When You Say Goodbye. I ended up going away to college. I did very poorly that entire year. The first semester, I got a 0.0 GPA. I immediately started getting high every day. My second semester, I got a 1.2. Or 1.8, something, not a C average. And And, I was out of there after 2 semesters. I came back home and I went to college locally. I commuted to school. I ended up getting a 3.5 that semester, and I transferred to another school in January of 2008. So that's where we're going to pick up our story, actually, in February of 2008. A month into this semester, I was exhibiting all of the same patterns of failure from my first time away at school, and really a lot of similar patterns of failure from the time I was, 10, 11, 12 years old. And it stems from that fear of, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. And, so a month into the semester, I was behind in all my schoolwork, and, I was letting those fears dictate the way I lived my life. And I wasn't going to get upset about being afraid, but I really was very upset about what happened after I got afraid. What happened after I got afraid was I drank, or I got high. I ran away. My response to those fears about the challenges of just being a person, of waking up in the morning and having things to do, was to run. And that was a really hard shame to live with. So in February at the school that I went to, there's a semi-formal dance, and everybody was at it. I was at a spot on campus where I normally hung out with people I had made friends with, and it was empty. And I went around the house just sort of tidying up and reflecting on how I could let it come to this again, how I could watch myself getting sucked into this fear and failure and this pattern and this cycle, and do nothing about it, but keep running away, keep not facing the fear. And so, everybody else is out partying, having a good time, and I'm alone in this house just cleaning up, and so I sat there and I wrote this song, which I think really puts into stark terms the essence of the struggle that I had from the time I was 10, 11, 12 years old, before I ever put a substance in my body, up until, even today. These, trying to do this right now is really overwhelming, and it's hard to stay engaged, and it's hard to not feel like I have bitten off more than I can chew, and that I should just go back to bed and forget that I ever tried to do anything with this in the first place. But it's, fortunately for me in recovery, the terms of the battle, the terms of the struggle, the field on which it is fought look a lot different than it did all those years before it. But this is what it looks like. The song's called My Own Best Enemy, and I hope you enjoy it. What the hell am I doing here? What the hell am I waiting for? This is getting awkward. I don't think I can take it anymore. I'm flailing and falling. My disposition is so appalling. I'm telling myself the same lies over and over again. I feel like my own best enemy. I feel like my own worst friend. Cleaning out the closets, sweeping all the floors, shutting all the windows, locking all the doors. This mindless activity is just useless self-captivity. I'm passively self-destructing. The sad part is I'm completely aware of all the harm I am causing, but I just can't bring myself to care. So this is the point on the record where you get to hear a really cool string section and a trumpet, and it goes on like that. I hope you enjoy that when it comes out. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you'll come back next week to hear about Maybe I Could Sleep. That's a fun track. And it's a fun story. And I hope you come back to see how long my hair is next week. And if you haven't already, check out Let Me Say Goodbye on the band page or the Reverb Nation page. Let me know what you think. See, it just goes on. It's a problem. I mean, I guess you could stop watching. But you're a little bit curious what happens, right? Nothing's gonna happen. Thanks again for being here. I love you. Bye.